I'm super delighted to be joined here today by Bobby Zagotta. He is CEO of Bitstamp US. Now, Bitstamp is consistently ranked a top-tier exchange as per our exchange review methodology, which means that Bitstamp as an exchange provides a lot of investor comforts. Not only are the markets good and deeply liquid, but also they have all of the due processes that you'd expect from a top-tier, elite, regulated exchange. Now, I'm going to have some time for some Q&A, so basically everything you ever wanted to ask an exchange CEO, you can ask. So I'll get a couple in. But without further ado, I'd like to move on to the questions. And Bobby, you joined crypto as an early 2018 cohort, so it was the 2017 hype cycle that brought you in. And you've got a very interesting backstory because you came from CME, a group that we've referenced a few times before. Could you give me a little bit of your backstory? And it's a pretty interesting one, I think.
Sure, thank you, and thanks for having me. This is just an absolutely great event. Really appreciate the efforts of Solidus and CryptoCompare to bring us together around this topic, and pleased to be a part of it. To answer your question, yeah, I've been very fortunate to have some great opportunities in my career. Everything from an engineer to a CEO and co-founder of a tech startup to a C-level at a Fortune 500, which was CME Group, and now into crypto. And at CME Group, I led the products and services division, which was kind of the P&L role there, and also had responsibility for CME Ventures, our venture capital arm. And we started exploring and investing in crypto and blockchain companies in late 2014, which is what got me immensely interested and sent me down the rabbit hole, as it were. Digital Currency Group was our very first investment with CME Ventures. And my head kind of exploded when I started realizing the possibilities, especially vis-a-vis the exchange business like CME. And we were able to move that big company in the right direction. We launched the Bitcoin futures product, which is, as Chris mentioned earlier, was no easy feat. But I will tell you, once you get the fever for crypto, and you're working for a 160-year-old company, which is a great company, but it's really a company whose core strategy tilts a little bit more towards preserving the past versus inventing the future. It gets tough. And I was fortunate enough to get into a conversation with Jesse Powell at Kraken, and I joined Kraken in 2018. Chief Commercial Officer there for 3 years, had an absolutely fabulous experience there, learned a ton, and I think contributed a lot. And now very pleased to be at Bitstamp USA, which has, I think, an even better complement of ingredients for what the marketplace needs right now.
Yeah, no, thank you. And Jesse Powell is a true pioneer in the space, so it must have been wonderful working for him. So you've obviously sat on fairly significant seats on both of these exchanges, Kraken and Bitstamp. In your current seat, how does Bitstamp see things? Does it see it differently to other exchanges? And how do you differentiate Bitstamp in what is a highly competitive market?
Thank you for that question. There's a lot of things about Bitstamp that attracted me to the company and that I think are really resonating with the marketplace. So the first one is, the platform, and I give it to the guys who founded it and who came before me. It was really designed with this moment in mind. It's institutional grade platform. It, for instance, has NASDAQ underlying matching technology, and has other kind of service and operations processes that are built for institutions and for broad adoption. Lots of our competitors, which have great platforms, but they're homegrown, and I don't think they're really ready for institutional adoption on a broad scale. In fact, when there's real price swings with Bitcoin, they go down. All the exchanges that we've mentioned today go down on a very regular basis, which is fine for the retail audience. It's really not going to be good for the institutional audience. The second thing that Bitstamp brings is a different compliance posture, I would say, than some of the competitors. Some of the competitors who say they're very interested in broad adoption, but their DNA is a little bit more wanting to see the traditional financial services side of the marketplace burned to the ground. as opposed to Bitstamp's DNA, which is building bridges, being forward or proactive with regulators, not because it's so fun, but because we know that's necessary for broad adoption, and that's the real win. And then finally, the last thing I'll say about it is Bitstamp's DNA is very customer focused, and we've built a real capability around personalized service. So I think a lot of the crypto exchanges, they approach service like a tech company, like Facebook. Like, they do not want to talk to you, right? It's almost impossible to talk to a human in these companies, and Bitstamp has the other approach. Because why? It's a big decision, and it's complex. So whether you're an institution or you're a retail investor, if you want to get into the market, it's awfully nice to be able to speak with a human, ask your questions in your words, and get answers. And Bitstamp, you can get to a human on average in 22 seconds.
I completely agree with that point of view. I mean, as an sort of traditional guy, we had to be on the phone to our customers. The moment something went wrong, the customer knew they could phone us, and they could finger someone to get really angry at. And I think some of these tech platforms forget that, insofar as if you've got millions of dollars at risk and something's gone wrong, and then you get told that you're in a ticket SLA of 1 hour, you're going to be pretty angry, right? So
it's not a good moment for a chatbot.
No, indeed. Actually, on that theme then, so it's definitely true that we sort of see companies coming in, and traditional companies that is, and they either say, okay, we're going to build our own thing from the bottom up, or actually we're going to build on something that exists. And I notice that exchanges more and more now, not just offering trading services, but sort of infrastructure services. Is that something you're going in for? Are you thinking about that?
Yes, it is, for sure, and it's really an interesting time right now. We were recently at Money 2020 in Las Vegas, and had a presence there. And to your point, I think every single company at that conference, which is primarily fintech companies and traditional financial services companies, they had one question on their mind, which is, what is our crypto play? Right. And lots of people came to our booth with that question, and some of them were very excited, and some of them were absolutely terrified by what's happening. But they're all looking for an answer to that question. And I think it's positive for the space that these traditional companies are very focused on it. I think choice is good for the marketplace and for consumers. But I do see a risk there, which is they may underestimate the technical lift and the innovation lift and the security lift, frankly, that's required to really operate a crypto business. It's radically different. Again, I worked at CME Group, one of the most powerful and secure companies on the planet, but it's nothing like the crypto exchange. When I joined Bitstamp, I thought I was joining the CIA. It's a very different kind of approach, and if those traditional financial services companies don't get that right, they're liable to create risks that will set us all back. So for that reason, I think partnering is a great idea. Bitstamp we have a Bitstamp as a service model where we can be a back-end crypto provider to any traditional financial services company.
Great. No, thank you for that. I guess we're a regulatory event today, so we obviously should address some of the comments that we've seen earlier, both from the policymakers current and past. Is there anything in that that's going to keep you up all night tonight?
Yes. Yeah. Regulation is something that Bitstamp, and as well as everybody in the room, is thinking an awful lot about, working very, very hard on. And we're at an interesting moment because I see two potential futures. One is extremely positive. We really do have the ingredients of doing something extraordinary, really leveraging this technology for all of the reasons that this crypto marketplace exists, to enable inclusion, enable wealth creation, enable innovation, but also enable safety, enable trustworthiness in venues and between peers or participants. And regulators, I think, are going to play a major role, and they can use that role for good, meaning engage in a constructive way with the industry and get, as I can't say it better than Chris did earlier, really buy into the idea of their role in innovation and the importance of innovation to our country and to the world and to the people that are disenfranchised around the world. So that's the positive side, and I'm working very hard to try to, for whatever I can do, kind of keep the momentum in that direction. However, there is another, there's another version of that tale, which is, trying to fit a new type of marketplace into an old set of laws, regulating by enforcement, which creates uncertainty, which slows everything down, and we could end up in a situation where you take the, arguably one of the most powerful technological innovations in the world, in the history of the world, and it gets watered down. It only lives up to 1% of its possibility because we haven't tried to manage it correctly as a society. So not saying anything that I think you all didn't hear earlier or maybe have felt or thought, but this is what I do think about, unfortunately, at night is, are we going to get it right? Are we going to come together, industry, regulators, customers, institutions, and
we have this great responsibility, don't we?
Yeah.
Really feel it.
Yes, thanks.
Yeah, no. So I mean, look, the regulatory question is clearly a big thing, and as I mentioned earlier this morning, it's clear that the regulators are chipping up, and our constant lobbying and educating is definitely paying dividends. But still, there are a couple of things that Gary said this morning that I just didn't agree with. I think the first one is he talked about the custodial problem and that it's still a problem. I disagree. I think the custody thing has been solved. The second thing he said is that there aren't any payment rails. I think that's wrong too. I think stable coins obviously are perhaps cheap, but they function as such. And there are things like Ripple as well. So, what's your take on that?
Do you think he's on the live stream?
Yeah, probably not. It may get back to him though.
No, I agree with those 2 points in particular. As somebody said earlier, I do think the comfort zone for regulators is working through intermediaries at different points in the ecosystem and using their influence there and using those as kind of control points. And obviously the space doesn't lend itself to that. But the idea about custody and removing, I think that's what's behind that thought, is disaggregating into component pieces so they have more choke points or control points, which again, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, yeah, it makes perfect sense. In the next 10 years, 20 years, I'm not so sure it does.
Yeah, and I guess it's because of this sort of structural thing, right? Like every part of the function has a specific body that oversees it. So when they then see a problem, I mean, they've got a hammer, it looks like a nail, they're going to hit it, right? So I guess it's something that needs a little bit more policy framework changing, perhaps. Look, moving back on to your customers, because I think the trends that you see are very interesting. What are the factors now driving institutional traction in the markets, and what does it look like on the retail side? Because you see both, don't you?
We do.
Yeah.
We do. It's just amazing when I think about when I joined Kraken in 2018 versus where we are today. I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable. When I joined Kraken, everyone I knew thought I was completely insane. I'm sure many of you have a story like that as well. And we knew that this was coming, but frankly, I thought it was going to be a few years out. So I'm really pleased. There's legitimacy to this space. Every developed economy around the world is regulating the space. Every major financial services company, as I mentioned, is working on something. They're either completely involved or partially involved. Sovereign nations, are adopting Bitcoin. Didn't see that coming in 2021. No. And there's products. There's Bitcoin futures ETF. I mean, that's just a great example of where there's common ground between traditional and crypto. And so lots of legitimacy, which of course is leading to more adoption by institutions. And the other thing that I think is a major factor is there's also more credible venues available to them today. As I alluded to earlier, you know, some crypto companies and crypto exchanges out there, you know, have a bit of a, you know, anarchy mindset and are difficult to work with if you're a traditional institution or an asset manager or family office who's got a lot of constituents to worry about. But there are today many more options, including Bitstamp, by the way, which has a different kind of platform approach and mindset that give more institutions more safety and more support, frankly, as they get involved. On the retail side, same phenomenon, although I have to remind myself, it's still early. You know, so the last stat I read was in the U.S., 13% of adults have invested. There's a lot of different stats out there, but there's still an awful lot of upside and opportunity that's good for crypto companies, but also good for those investors.
Yeah, and you know, in terms of the institutions that you see, you obviously have the institutions that are sort of buy and hold type investors. You know, you've got your corporate treasuries getting involved. Obviously, Michael Saylor is really trying to buy all the Bitcoin in the world, actually. But sometimes you also get some of the sharper end of the flow, and that actually might be destructive to the average retail person participating in an exchange. How do you protect the retail person against the HFT crowd?
Yeah, it's look, I think diverse market participants make healthy markets. When you have, you know, one type of market participant, that's tough. That's really tough and dangerous from a financial risk perspective. So I really love this model where an exchange can work directly with retail investors and directly with institutions of many different types and create a healthy marketplace versus intermediaries that, you know, basically reduce the opportunity for everybody. I will say this also, you know, even a year ago, I think amongst asset managers and investors, professional investors, I think the mindset was, you know, crypto's interesting, but it's just too risky to add to my portfolio or our portfolio. But today, you know, I think it's the opposite. It's awfully risky, I think, if you're a portfolio manager and you don't have a crypto allocation, because of the sheer return on investment. Your shareholders or your limited partners or whatever are going to be asking, like, hey, we're missing the bus. Cars are whizzing by us. I mean, nothing, what's that adage? You know, nothing succeeds like success, right? You know, the return on Bitcoin in 2021 has been 300%. You know, in 5 years, it's 7,000%. You know, gold and S&P, they can't touch it. I mean, they're nowhere near it.
But it's not just investors, is it? I mean, we see now a constant stream of people coming from traditional finance jobs, aware that they're being sort of perhaps squeezed or maybe exist in a sunset industry, and they see this shiny new industry. It's been phenomenal to see the quality of people coming over. We see that. I'm sure you see that too. Just changing speed a little bit. So CryptoCompare, we obviously see lots of coins and tokens, and I was recently in Portugal for Solana Breakpoint, and I really did that because, one, I wanted to see what the ecosystem looked like, you know, all the developers and all of the innovation that's going on that particular chain. It was a great conference, but I was pretty dismayed by one thing. I looked at the crowd, and it was overwhelmingly white, and it was 90% male. And that hurt a little bit. Is that reflected in your user base too? Are you seeing something different?
We are seeing some great trends. So one trend that we identified this year is female investors on Bitstamp. So female investors on Bitstamp is the fastest growing demographic, which is awesome to see for a lot of reasons. And we started looking into it to understand why and to see what it really meant. And the numbers are, the number of female investors is up by 50% this year, and the amount invested is up, I think, 40% or something pretty dramatic. But when you start to look into it, it's actually, you know, the majority of families in the U.S., you know, have whatever structure their family is in, that they have a woman who is the primary financial decision maker for the family. And if you look at the crypto markets traditionally, obviously that has not played out at all. It's been, you know, just incredibly predominantly male. And so I'm really pleased to see that changing, and I think it's changing in the right way for the right reasons, and something, frankly, we're really focusing on how we can accelerate that change. Beyond that, to your point about talent, we're trying to scale. I just can't hire fast enough. And to your point, there's a lot more interest in the space now. So there is more opportunity for more types of people from more walks of life. And that's something we're focused on too. It's great. A year ago, again, it was tougher. It was tougher to create a diverse candidate base for any role.
Yeah, no, super. I mean, I love to see more women coming into the space, both as people coming to work, but also investors. I read a study a while ago talking about female investors, and that there's a lot less ego in play when it comes to female investing. And I think that now maybe that's borne out by the fact the space is less risky. So we're seeing improvement from both ends of that particular question. It's really great to see.
Did you speak with my wife directly, or did you?
Yeah. Let's not go there. Right, so looking forward then, 2022, Bitstamp in 2022. First of all, the company, what are you changing next year? What are you focusing on? And also, maybe a minute or two on the markets as you see them. People talk about a 4-year cycle. Are we still in a 4-year cycle? Has that thinking changed? I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, thanks. So, firstly, from a Bitstamp perspective, we're just really, really excited. Like I mentioned, we kind of feel like we were made for this moment. We're the longest running crypto exchange. Just had our 10-year anniversary, so we have this awesome track record and reputation, and I think a really great offering for institutions and for retail investors. But our primary focus is product. So we have quite an active roadmap where we want to bring more types of opportunities for institutions and retail investors, and basically want to enable more types of customers to do more things on our platform, right? So from an institutional perspective, we've got an OTC service that we're going to roll out. We have a kind of a post-trade settlement offering that will enable some of our institutional clients to be much more capital efficient with how they work with us. And then we also have a broader range of tokens in the mix that we're working on. Obviously, that's a big set of decisions nowadays, tokens, so we've got quite a rigorous process around that. And then on the retail side, it's exciting. There's a number of things I really can't share today, but it suffices to say we want to come out with, or we will be coming out with in the next couple of quarters, some functionality that will just make our retail investors' lives much, much easier.
Yeah, no, super. And in terms of the markets, how do you see them going?
Yeah, it's
obviously not financial advice. But
yeah. This is definitely not financial advice. Yeah, I'm still optimistic. I think we all know that all markets cycle, and the crypto market in particular cycles. But what I'm observing is as the overall size of the market grows, it seems to absorb volatility better, I think. So the swings are not as extreme, perhaps, and again, that kind of makes it easier for people to get their brain around and get involved in. In terms of 2022, I think we're going to continue to see a strong market for at least a few quarters. And like I said, the number of institutions in particular who are onboarding with us week over week over week just keeps going up. So I keep waiting to see, is that going to plateau? Is it going to peak? It hasn't yet. So I'm encouraged and optimistic at least through mid next year and hopefully beyond. I do think if there is a cycle, I don't think it's going to be extreme like it might have been 2 or 3 years ago. I think it'll be a plateau. When I think about equities, I know there's a correction coming there too at some point. I've lived through a few now, and it's not fun. I'm so pleased that today I have an alternative. I can allocate some of my portfolio to something that's not so correlated, and so I can guard against it a little bit.
Yeah, nice. Well, I'd like to open up to the floor now. Bobby, that's okay with you, right? Well,
Yeah, it's okay with me. It's okay with you guys.
Yeah. So if we've got a couple of questions, it would be great. Anyone in the room want to ask Bobby a question? I think we knocked him dead.
Oh yeah, good.
Yeah.
Oh wait, we got one. Oh, I thought he was going to ask a question. All right,
Who
no
has a
questions?
question?
No more questions?
Fantastic.
Great.
I
Well,
think it's drinks.
Yeah, it is drinks. Well, actually, before drinks, first of all, I have some closing remarks, but I'd like to thank Bobby first and foremost. One, for being a great friend and being so open with us, but also for sponsoring this event alongside BCB Group. So, a big hand to Bobby and Bitstamp US. So, no, you can stay if you like. Yeah. I'm going to keep my closing remarks extremely brief because I realize I'm the last guy standing between you and drinks. That's never a good place to be. But this event today has left me simultaneously overwhelmed, but also very excited for the future. Overwhelmed because of how far we've come, but how much work there is still to do. Excited in the future because we spoke about a few of these things just now. There are so many fantastic people here rallying behind the brilliant technologists who are leading the transformation of financial markets 2.0. And it's really breathtaking to see. But guys like us in suits might not be the shadowy supercoders of this world, but we certainly are here to sort of help educate the regulators so we don't have that over-regulation, so that we can create this space for this new financial paradigm to exist, and basically to uphold the values of decentralized finance. So we're very, very excited. I'm very excited to see it all today. So I think we're in great hands. That's the big takeaway. We're all going to make it, obviously. So we can all tweet that. And now I'd like to move on to some thank yous. I've already thanked Bobby and Oliver at BCB Group. I think this has been a great success of an event. I hope you agree. It was brought to you in partnership with Solidus Labs, the superlative Chen and his team, but also CryptoCompare ourselves, led by the undefeated Alyssa Ostrov, who really, really pulled everything out to keep this event going. This event was actually cancelled on us on Monday, and we managed to find another venue, or Alyssa managed to find another venue. I don't think they've slept. It's her birthday, so she'll be enjoying a few drinks later. And then I'd like to say thank you to Company, this venue, for helping us out in our hour of need. Studio Box for the fantastic real-time streaming that we've had of this event. We'll be using you in future, sir. And thank you to you, the attendees, both here in person, and it's so great to see that you're braving the COVID situation, and online. We know we've had some great participation, some great feedback. So thanks for coming. And for those of you here, it's drinks.